What's up guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to start a series that we've been pretty excited to do, and it's going to be about troubleshooting various systems in your RV. Obviously we have a fifth wheel, so a lot of this information is going to apply directly to our Grand Design fifth wheel, but no matter what kind of a travel trailer, fifth wheel, Class A, Class C, it really doesn't matter. A lot of this information, even though the component locations might be different, a lot of this information is going to transfer over to really any RV that you might have. So we're excited to get this one started, so stay tuned. So this video specifically is going to talk about the electrical system on your RV. So the first thing we're going to cover is some basic terminology that you'll need to understand as we go through this video. So the first thing is AC current. So AC stands for alternating current, and that's going to be your 110 volt power. It's going to power up all of your big appliances like your air conditioner, like your electric side of your water heater, fireplace if you have it, all of your electrical outlets inside your RV. Those are all AC powered and will run off of the power coming from your power pedestal through your power cord into your RV. The next term is going to be DC. So DC power is direct current, and that refers to the power coming from the batteries that are installed in your RV. Our fifth wheel came with one battery. We've added a second one, but it doesn't matter how many batteries your RV has, your DC direct current power is going to come from those batteries. 99% of all RVs, all of your interior lighting is going to be DC powered. So anything that you can turn on in your RV without having your electrical cord plugged into the pedestal, if you can turn it on and it powers on, that's going to be a DC powered circuit. Now there is a caveat to this. If you have a power inverter and you're running on your inverter that's pulling off your batteries, then you may have more things that will power up inside your RV, but we're not going to get into, I'm going to try to stay out of the weeds too much about RVs that have inverter systems in them, and really try to keep the DC side separate from the AC side in this video. So the next term that I want to clarify, and a lot of people use this term interchangeably, and it's incorrect because they're two completely different items that have completely different functions, and that is an inverter. So you heard me just talk about RVs that have inverters on them. We have an inverter on our RV, and what an inverter does is it takes the 12 volt power from your batteries, so your inverter is wired to your batteries, and it turns that power from 12 volt DC power into 110 volt AC power. Now, there are some inverters that run on 24 volts and things of that nature, but for this video we're going to talk about inverters that are take 12 volt and turn them into 110 volt. That is an inverter. Not all RVs have an inverter. What all RVs do have is a converter. So a converter takes 110 volt power and turns it into 12 volt power to charge your batteries and to run all of your lighting and things of that nature when you're plugged in. So all RVs are going to have a converter. If your batteries are going dead on your RV and you're not sure why, it could be that you have a bad converter. On a fifth wheel, on our fifth wheel anyway, there are two different types of converters. So ours has a separate converter that's just basically a box. It's in the basement, behind the basement wall, plugged into an outlet, and then there are wires that go from that converter up to our batteries that charge our batteries, and then it also runs all of our 12 volt lighting and anything that runs off of 12 volt inside the RV. The other style converter that's out there is actually part of your breaker panel inside your RV. Ours does not have this. Some fifth wheels do. A lot of RVs have this style converter. The way to know if that's the style you have, if your breaker panel, where all your breakers and fuses are located inside your RV, if there's a section of that has vents or it has slats in it for like a louver, and you can hear a fan running in there, then your converter is part of your breaker panel. So I know that was a lot of information, but I just wanted to kind of clarify some of that so that as we go along here and we're using some of these terms, you guys are familiar with what we're talking about. All right, so now we're going to go over some of the more common issues that you're going to find with the DC power on your RV. So a big issue that we see a lot of people post about is they will arrive at a campsite, everything is working when they packed up their RV to leave, they get to the campsite, they go inside, turn the switch on, turn the lights on, no lights come on. They have no power to the lights. That is a very common problem, and when you have that, that is going to be a problem with the DC side of your RV, which is going to be your batteries. So if that happens, the first thing you're going to want to do is check your battery cutoff switch. So every RV has a battery cutoff switch that will allow you to disconnect the batteries, disconnect the power from the batteries to the inside of the RV, typically. So on our fifth wheel, that's also located in the basement. You know, it may vary, it may be in a different spot on your RV, but it shouldn't be difficult to find. Most of the time it's going to be by the batteries somewhere. If you have a Class A or Class C, there could be a battery disconnect switch inside on your convenience panel, but that's what you're going to want to check. So this is our battery cutoff. Right now it's on, but a lot of times what will happen is something will bump into this and it'll click it off. And then once it clicks off, the key will fall out. So this is going to be the first thing you want to check. If you don't have any power inside your RV, check and make sure that your battery switch is on and that something didn't hit this key to turn your batteries off. So another thing that you'll notice, if your lights don't work and if your AC air conditioning thermostats are also powered by the 12-volt DC side of your RV. So if your thermostats are blank and they're off, if you have no lights on the inside, definitely the first step is going to be check that battery disconnect, make sure your batteries did not get turned off at the switch. So the next thing you're going to want to check, if your battery switch is on, everything looks good, the next thing you're going to want to check, you're going to have a multimeter for. So if you don't have a digital voltmeter, I would highly recommend picking one up. They're very inexpensive. This one was like $19 at Harbor Freight. Has a lot of functions. The two things that we're going to concentrate on is how to set this to check DC voltage, how to set it to check AC voltage, and how to use the ohm setting to be able to test fuses and continuity. So first thing we're going to do, so when you see a line that has a V with a solid line above it and dotted lines below it, that's going to be DC current. That's direct current. The V with the wavy line, squiggly line, is going to be AC voltage. So we're going to check our batteries. We're going to need DC voltage for that. We're going to set it to 60. And what this is, this sets the limit of the voltmeter to 60 volts. The DC side of our RV is only going to be a 12-volt system, so setting it at 60 is plenty. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're trying to see your battery voltage, you're going to take your black lead, put it on the negative terminal of your battery, red lead on the positive terminal, and you see we have 13.42 volts. So our batteries are fully charged. And you can see we have two batteries set up here, but typically if you're having an issue with your batteries and you're checking the voltage on them, you're going to want to disconnect the batteries from each other because you'll get voltage bleeding over from the good battery to the bad battery. This is just a demonstration, so I'm not going to disconnect these, but if you disconnect your batteries and you check the voltage on one and it's say 10.5 volts, and you check the voltage on the other one and it's up at 12 or 12.5 volts, if there's a big voltage difference between those two batteries, then you probably have a bad battery. I would definitely recommend, at the very least, if you have a big voltage difference between the two batteries when they're disconnected from each other, to take them out, take them somewhere wherever they can do a load test on them just to verify. But if there's a big voltage difference between those two when they're disconnected from each other, you probably have an issue with one of those batteries. So we check the voltage. Our battery voltage is up. If we check this and our battery voltage was low, say down below 12 volts, really below 12.5 volts, the next thing we need to do is see if our converter is working. So the converter is going to charge these batteries. So if they're low, there's a chance the converter might not be charging the batteries. With a bad converter, a lot of times you'll notice your lights are starting to dim. If you have lights on and you turn additional lights on, they'll dim down. What the converter is designed to do, when you're plugged in to shore power, so when you're plugged into your power pedestal, the converter provides the 12 volt power to the trailer. So if your converter is bad and not supplying that 12 volt power and it's relying strictly on the batteries, once they start to get low, you'll notice that when you turn lights on, things dim down. With a good converter, that shouldn't happen. That converter should supply the 12 volt power to keep everything at the correct voltage. So if you're having that issue, if you notice that your batteries are low, then you're going to want to check that converter. In our situation, we have that separate converter that's behind the wall in the basement. First thing you're going to want to do is check in your breaker box and check the converter breaker to make sure that the breaker's not tripped. If the breaker is good, your next step is going to be to go to your converter, and there's going to be fuses in the back of it. Make sure there's no blown fuses in the back of that converter. Most of the time, you're going to find that there's probably some blown fuses in that converter. It does happen. It's pretty common. If you've had your batteries disconnected for any reason and hooked them back up and now you're having an issue, you're definitely going to want to check the fuses in the back of that converter. If you have a converter that's built into your breaker panel inside your RV, it has reverse polarity fuses right on the front of that panel. So typically there's about 4 fuses. You're going to want to check and make sure that those aren't blown. I mean, these systems are not very complicated, the DC systems anyway. So if you check your batteries, if you check, make sure your disconnect's not turned off. You check the breaker for your converter, make sure it's not tripped, and you check the fuses in the converter or the reverse polarity fuses in the panel that go to the converter. If you check all that and all that checks out good and your batteries check out good and they're just not charging, at that point it's pretty safe to say most likely you've got a bad converter. Another thing that you have to keep in mind, if your batteries are discharging when your RV is sitting, so let's say you have your RV in storage, you have your battery disconnect turned off, and you come back in a few days and your batteries are dead, keep in mind that the propane detector inside is wired directly to the batteries. So even with that battery disconnect switch cut off, the propane detector will still have power and will over time draw your batteries down to where they're dead. So that's another problem that we see a lot of people talking about. They're confused as to why, with the battery disconnect switch off, they put the RV in storage, they come back, the next weekend or a couple weeks later, and all the batteries are dead. They recharge the batteries, everything checks out good, so it's not an issue with the batteries. Everything works on their trip, but every time they put it in storage, the batteries are dead in a week. That is because of the propane detector in the RV. So if you're going to store it and you don't have any way to keep those batteries charged while it's in storage, you're going to want to disconnect the negative cable off those batteries, and at that point it'll disconnect the power to the RV, to the propane detector, and it won't draw your batteries down while it's in storage. Alright, so let's say you pull your fuse out and it looks good. You don't see any obvious signs of it being burnt or blown. To be able to check a fuse with the voltmeter, this little orange symbol, the arrow with a line through it, is a symbol for continuity. So we're going to turn this. If it has a little like an audible symbol there, what that means is it will, if there is continuity, you'll hear a noise, you'll hear a beep. So when I touch my two leads together, I get a beep. That's saying that there is continuity. So if I have my fuse, I put my black lead on one blade and my red lead on the other. If you put it on there and hear that beep, you know that fuse is good. It is very common though for fuses sometimes to just blow or be partially blown, and if it breaks down way down in the corner down here, you may not even see it. So just because a fuse looks good, if you can use the ohm setting on your voltmeter and you get that beep, you can guarantee that that fuse is going to be good. So a perfect example of this, we had only had our RV for a couple of months, and our refrigerator switched over to propane only. It wouldn't run on electricity, it would just run on propane. And the issue was in the back, on the circuit board in the back of the refrigerator, there is a little tiny 2 amp glass fuse, and that fuse is so small that you can't even see the filament inside the glass tube. It looked good, it wasn't burnt or didn't have any brown looking burnt marks on it at all, but when I pulled it out and I tested it with the meter, it was indeed blown. It didn't look blown, it looked perfect, but it was bad. And replaced that fuse, and we haven't had an issue since. So without having a voltmeter to test that, if I just took a look at it, yeah, fuse looks good, put it back in, and then end up calling somebody out to look at my RV, they're going to find that bad fuse that I already had out. They're going to put a fuse in it, you know, they're going to charge me who knows how much, how many hundreds of dollars to diagnose my refrigerator if they don't try to sell me a circuit board first. So this voltmeter, having a voltmeter and knowing how to use just the very basic functions is going to allow you to really diagnose a lot of this stuff on your RV yourself, a lot of the simple stuff, and 90% of the time it's going to be something simple. It's going to be something very, very simple. You know, checking the connections at your batteries. If you're having power issues, make sure your connections are tight. Connections will loosen up over time. I mean, a loose connection at your battery will cause all kinds of electrical problems on the DC side. So before you panic and call somebody out to look at it, if you have a voltmeter, you're familiar with how to use it, you're going to save yourself a ton of money and a lot of headache, and be able to find some of these simple problems yourself. So the next electrical system on your RV, as we discussed, is the AC power, and that's going to be coming in from the pedestal. If you lose the AC power, it doesn't necessarily mean that you lost power at your pedestal. We're going to head inside and I'll show you one of the most common items that's causing you to lose power to your electrical outlets inside the RV. Alright, so we're in here in the bathroom in our fifth wheel, and this outlet is a GFCI outlet. This means that it is protected, and should something happen to short this outlet out, this one's right by our sink, but all of your outdoor power outlets, anything that's outside the RV, is going to be controlled from this GFCI outlet. Anything that's near a water source like a sink, all the ones in the kitchen side of our RV, all are powered or run through this outlet. So if this outlet trips, it cuts the power off to all the outside outlets, to this outlet, and the ones in the kitchen area. All RVs will have a GFCI outlet somewhere, and you can see this has a test button and a reset button. You push the test button. If this outlet is tripped, it will typically have an orange light that comes on. You can reset it by pushing the middle button. You'll hear it click and it'll come back on. What we're going to show you now is how to check power in your GFCI outlet with our voltmeter. So now we're going to want to use the AC setting. So you're going to find that little wavy line. That's going to be AC. This is going to be 110 volt, so we'll use the 600 volt setting on AC. So we're going to take our leads and we're just going to put them in each of the slots for our AC outlet. So black lead on one side, red lead in the other side, and you can see we've got 120 volts on this outlet. So that's just an easy way to check. They make AC outlet testers that will, you just plug it right in and it has lights on it. It'll light up to tell you if the outlet is good or if it has power. But this will not only tell you if it has power, but it'll tell you how much power you have. So if you plug this in and you're only getting, let's say you're only getting, you know, half the power, or you're not getting a full 120 volts, then you're going to know that you have an issue with the power coming into the RV. So that's going to be the #1 cause of losing power. If you have multiple outlets that lose power at the same time, you're going to want to find that GFCI outlet wherever it's located at in your RV and make sure that that GFCI outlet is not tripped. We ran into a situation where our power cord, where our power inlet on the RV side was completely melted, where the wiring goes into the back of it. I've seen scenarios where one of those wires actually melts totally off, and on a 50 amp RV, you'll only be getting half. You'll only be getting half the RV fed with the correct amount of power, because the other wire that's going into the back of your plug is not connected anymore to anything. So if you have that type of situation, definitely need to check that. If you've had your RV for a while and you've never removed that outlet to tighten up the connections, I would recommend doing that. We had no signs of any issues in our RV. I just noticed that there were some burn marks on the actual outlet itself, which didn't look nearly as bad as what we found when we removed it. It was absolutely, it was really scary. It really looked like our RV was just, it could have caught fire at any time based on the way that outlet looked. So I would recommend pulling that off. We have a video on how to remove that, tighten it up, how to change it if yours is melted or doesn't look good, you're not confident in it. We have a video how to change that. It's very simple to do, it's very easy. So if you're having power issues, I would recommend checking that. Really anything, as long as your surge protector shows there's good power from the pedestal, if there's nothing going through the cord from your surge protector into the RV, then I would check that receptacle on the back of the RV or wherever your power cord connects on your RV. Obviously, if you turn it on, if you turn your breakers on at your power pedestal and nothing comes on, you can use the voltmeter to check power at that pedestal to see if there's any power coming from it. But if you have a surge protector, it's going to tell you right away whether there's any power there or not. And if not, then at that point you're going to call the campground, because anything that needs to happen to correct that will be on them. They can check power, and most likely the problem's going to be on their side. So again, like I said in the beginning, this isn't a comprehensive, how to diagnose every single electrical issue you're going to have on your RV, but we've been doing this now since 2019, and we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Facebook posts. I've helped people fix their RVs that were having power issues, and 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, is almost always something simple. It's rarely something that's some super complex major issue. I mean, could it be? Absolutely, it definitely could be something major. But especially if the problem happens suddenly, if you weren't having any problems and now all of a sudden you're having a problem, try to think back. Try to think, what did I do something different? Did we move sites? Were we putting stuff in and out of the basement storage? Could something hit the battery disconnect? I mean, just familiarize yourself with the electrical system on your RV. That way you can check the basic stuff and understand the terminology, AC, DC, definitely understand the difference between an inverter and a converter. They sound very similar, but they operate in completely opposite ways. And if you do that, even if you can't figure out what the problem is with your RV, when a tech comes out, or when a mobile tech comes out, or when somebody comes over to try to work on your RV and they're telling you what they found wrong with it, you'll have a better understanding of how the systems work, and you'll know if what they're saying makes sense. So if they're telling you, if they're telling you, hey, your inverter's bad, and you know that you don't have an inverter in your RV, at least you can ask some questions and get some clarification before forking over hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of dollars just to pick your RV up and find out that they didn't really fix anything. Again, every RV is a little bit different, but they all really operate and function very, very similar fashion. I hope you guys found this video informative. I hope you might have learned something. That's going to do it for now. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you guys down the road.